What's going on, YouTube? Ferocity here. Hope you guys are doing well. Has Call of Duty's multiplayer been put on the back burner ever since Warzone was first implemented? Now, this is a very interesting thought experiment because I think you could draw a direct timeline from when it seemed that Call of Duty shifted its priorities away from multiplayer and towards Battle Royale. And I think to do this, we have to think back to when Battle Royale was in its biggest craze, right? Think back to when it was sweeping the gaming industry. And of course, all of us wanted Call of Duty to get their hands in on it. And Treyarch supplied that opportunity by releasing the game mode Blackout alongside Black Ops 4. Now, the problem with Blackout wasn't that the gameplay was poor, it was the fact that its barrier to entry was a lot higher and a lot more costly than other competitors on the market. Think back to the time. Apex Legends, Fortnite, these games were free. PUBG was maybe 20 bucks at the time. And this was a big detriment to Call of Duty because Blackout was a ton of fun. It gave players the opportunity to explore this expansive map that had a bunch of different Easter eggs and points of interest that were reminiscent of old multiplayer maps. And I really like that. I kind of miss Blackout. But when Modern Warfare 2019 released, we didn't get any type of Battle Royale at launch. No, we had to wait until March of 2020 to get a new Battle Royale mode, which was a direct competitor to Apex Legends and Fortnite because it was a free-to-play game mode. But it was very clear that once this game came out, multiplayer has been put on the back burner ever since. Because I would argue that Black Ops 4's multiplayer was actually pretty decent. It was a lot of fun. I think the Treyarch put a lot of effort into making sure that it was as prosperous as it possibly could be. And then if you look back to Modern Warfare 2019, that's kind of when everything changed. Obviously, Modern Warfare 2019 was utilizing a brand new engine, and I think Infinity Ward was trying to play it safe on this new engine, wasn't trying to do anything too outside the box. But they didn't evolve the multiplayer enough over the course of the game's life cycle to really feel that they were that invested into the multiplayer. Now, I understand that 2020 has this massive cloud over it because of what happened, but it was a sign of things to come. We can use the 2020 excuse all we want, but there was still 5 months where Modern Warfare 2019 had its full developers in studio every single day and didn't evolve the multiplayer enough. But don't worry, they were able to release this standalone Battle Royale game while they allowed multiplayer to suffer for the entire year. But maybe things will change with Black Ops Cold War. Now, we all know the drama that ensued with that game. Sledgehammer Games was set to develop it, and halfway through the game's development cycle, Sledgehammer was removed and instead replaced with Treyarch, and Treyarch had to try to pick up the pieces and do a lot of patchwork to get that game to go gold when they did, and unfortunately it was to the detriment of the game. Once again, we could utilize the excuse that, well, Black Ops Cold War, you know, it was made during a really uncertain time, and on top of that we had to remove developers. It's still released, and it was never released in a full capacity. And on top of that, we didn't get enough content for this game until 9-10 months after its release. But don't worry, Warzone was constantly updated. Warzone was constantly met with new content, and it was clear that Warzone's health was a priority for Call of Duty, which you'd think is counterproductive. Why would Call of Duty sink all this time in to making sure Warzone was as healthy as possible while their multiplayer was slowly dying because players were leaving it? And frankly, it's because they crunched the numbers. Warzone was generating more revenue for them than multiplayer. So why would they put the resources and the time into making multiplayer as successful as it possibly could be? And of course, this was once again realized when Call of Duty Vanguard released. Yes, it had content, but it was content that lacked any substance whatsoever. But don't worry, Warzone was alive and well. Warzone didn't have the same problems that multiplayer had. And it's very clear that Call of Duty's priorities have shifted towards Warzone. This is where they want the players to be playing. They want you to still buy the mainline games, but they want you to spend the majority of your time and money on Warzone. That's their goal. And what we saw was, hey, even though both Fortnite and Apex only have one game, and even though that all of your purchases that you made on both Fortnite and Apex have been there ever since the game's inception, we're going to totally change that up with Warzone 2. And this was a huge misstep and miscalculation by Activision. If they had just once again integrated Modern Warfare 2 assets into Warzone, I think that Warzone would be a lot higher received right now than it is. And it's because of some really bad decisions that Activision's right now trying to pick up the pieces of Warzone, because they decided to create Warzone 2.0, and a lot of the decisions and changes they made to Warzone were not welcomed by the community. And on top of that, all of your progress, all of your skins that you'd purchased didn't transfer over. So I think we can all agree that that's pretty shady from a business standpoint. And on top of that, they're also reselling old bundles and old skins and old camos from their original run of Warzone 1.0 in Modern Warfare 2 now. And it's absolutely disgusting. But it's very clear that there is a correlation between the fall of Call of Duty's multiplayer and the rise of Warzone, and where Call of Duty and Activision has been putting their focus. It's very clear. We haven't had a quality multiplayer for a few years now, despite your opinion on any of these games, because I like Black Ops Cold War, but I can sit here and I can agree that if you look at the last 4 years, it's very clear that Call of Duty's multiplayer has been on a steady decline, that we're not getting the type of content that we used to. We're not getting enough changes throughout the course of the year. Look at Modern Warfare 2. Look at the feedback that the community threw at that game for the first few months of its life cycle, even prior to its life cycle beginning. And none of those changes were implemented. However, any changes that were needed to Warzone were slowly made over time from player feedback. Very different situations. You have a game that it's very clear Activision wants to nurture and allow it to prosper as much as possible, versus an attention grabber that they know people are just going to sink time into because it's Call of Duty. And that's the unfortunate situation that we're in right now, is that Call of Duty cares more about Warzone than they do multiplayer. They know that people are going to play multiplayer regardless if they change anything or they don't. But what they're concerned about is losing this cash cow that is Warzone. Because I think we can all admit Warzone is where the majority of the players are at right now. People aren't playing multiplayer like they used to. They're playing Warzone. And the reason for that, it's free to play. There's no barrier to entry. You can play with your friends across console. And it's very clear that Call of Duty cares about that game a little bit more. They're willing to make changes. They're willing to listen to the community, even though it's not enough, more than they're willing to listen to the community when it comes to multiplayer. And I think this tweet from Nero Cinema sums it up quite well. 2019 to present COD multiplayer just hasn't been as long-lasting and as good as the older games. I firmly believe it's because of Warzone, with the focus on that and the store. And this is the tweet that inspired this entire commentary today. But it still is very truthful. Let's look at the last time Call of Duty's multiplayer was in a pretty healthy spot, and it was Black Ops 4. It's not hard to see the correlation here. It's not hard to see where the priorities are set now. Because I think a lot of us can agree. Modern Warfare 2019, Modern Warfare 2, Call of Duty Vanguard are some of the worst Call of Duty experiences we've ever seen. And I think a lot of people would lump Black Ops Cold War in there. I'm not willing to do that yet just because I do like it. I understand all of its problems, and I'm going to talk about that in a future video. But yeah, I think we can all agree here that Call of Duty's multiplayer since 2019 has been the secondary focus of Activision. And because it's become its secondary focus, it has become a worse game because of it. And now that multiplayer has been on a steady decline for 4 years, you're pushing a lot of players outside the community. And guess what? You're not going to have those sales records that you had for Modern Warfare 2. It's just not going to happen. And what Activision's going to learn very quickly is that they're going to need to pick up their socks if they want to get the returns they need to make sure that Warzone is as successful as it can be during the Modern Warfare 3 era. That's just my opinion, though. I'd love to hear your thoughts down below in the comment section. Let me know if you think that Call of Duty's decline has been directly correlated to Warzone's implementation, or if it's something else. Would love to hear from you. As always, guys, if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. If you want to see more from me, please hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys next time.